What's up guys, it's me Harry, and I know a lot of people who've seen my unboxing of the 2020 refresh of the HP MV13 have been waiting for this video for so long, and I'm sorry it's taken a while, but here it is now finally. But even now there still seems to be so little coverage of this laptop, so the only real coverage I can find is one review online from Trusted Reviews. So if you're interested, feel free to also read that review. I'll put it in the description below. But yeah, so I've now had this laptop for quite a while now, and even before I uploaded my unboxing, I had it for about a week or so. I just took a while getting around to editing and uploading the unboxing. But I can safely say that I do love this laptop. That's not to say it's perfect though, as much as I am infatuated with this beautiful little laptop. As well as this laptop, I'd also like to briefly go over the HP MV500 rechargeable mouse briefly, as it is available in a bundle with this laptop. And while I'm not a huge mouse nerd, I mostly reserve my hardware interests to phones and computer hardware. But from my experience, I found it to be a great mouse. It's got a great minimalist design with an aluminium top, which you can easily remove to find a USB-A dongle for this mouse, which uses 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi connectivity rather than Bluetooth, and the mouse is also charged by a micro USB cable, which is included in the box. And in my experience, I've had yet to charge it yet, and on their website, HP claim to have about 11 weeks battery life on here, and I've had at least a few weeks worth of battery life. Keep in mind that is with me turning it off when I'm not using my laptop. It's a beautiful, well-balanced mouse with a good ergonomic design for both right and left-handed users. And although I did initially notice the mouse click was sometimes double-clicking on accident, like I'd click once and then it would click twice, that issue has seemed to disappear now, but I thought I'd mention it just so you're aware in case that issue is a prominent issue or one that is sustained and I will experience more myself. But yeah, so I just thought I'd point that out quickly. Anyway, back to the laptop itself, which I'm sure is the main reason a lot of you are here. Let's begin my review with the first thing that you interact with for this laptop. The price. So the model I have is the top end model, which has a dedicated graphics card, the MX350, and a 10th gen i7, the 10510U, and this model costs £1,150 without any discounts, which is already a great price for what you're getting, but I also got it with a student discount, which is about 10% off I believe, and that also gives you the option to get the 3-year warranty package for £50 instead of the £100 you would normally have to pay. So if you can get it with student discount, if you're a student, or any other discount that HP may offer, I would recommend it because it's always nice to save money, but even without a discount, it's a great price. There are also cheaper models as well that go as low as £850, and whilst these models lack dedicated graphics, they do have Thunderbolt 3 support, and the mid-range model, which I believe is about £1,000, does have Intel's Iris Pro graphics as well. So while it doesn't have dedicated graphics, it has much improved graphics as well as Thunderbolt 3 support, so keep that in mind. Now onto the build quality and design of the laptop itself. So the 2020 refresh of the MV13 is a compact little thing that definitely has a beautiful modern look, and at just 1.3 kilograms is a great option for people looking for a lightweight portable laptop for work or study. The MV13 has been a beautiful laptop for the last few years, since its first big design change in, I believe, 2017, which is where it got rid of some hideously thick bezels and a rounded design that just didn't feel very elegant, whereas now it's a much more refined design. And that design refresh then in 2017 was probably the biggest design refresh that the MV line has seen, and I'd say this refresh now is probably the next biggest that it's seen since then. So the MV13 has now followed in the footsteps of the Spectre 13 earlier this year, which got rid of its horrifically big bezels on both the top and bottom, whereas the MV13 already had a decently small top bezel, and now has a much smaller bottom bezel, which I'm very pleased about, and this helps it have a much smaller footprint, which is great for portability as I've already said, although one thing this redesign does sacrifice is the top firing speakers that the MV13 used to have, which is something to keep in mind if you're someone who loved the speakers before, because they're still good now, but I'm not sure I'd say they're the same quality, because obviously half as many speakers and only down firing is going to be a noticeable difference. These bezels are still not clearly as thin as the 2020 XPS 13, which has ridiculously thin bezels all the way around, and I honestly have no idea how Dell managed to do that. But that's not to say that for an Ultrabook that costs as little as £850 here in the UK and $1,000 in the US, not even accounting for any offers that are often available on HP's website, these bezels are still very immersive and eye-catching, and for what can be a relatively low price tag for an Ultrabook, I definitely do think this design is a very polished, very beautiful design that I think a lot of people will love. Now in previous models, the MV13's display used to be a little bit wobbly when you used a touchscreen or shake the frame a bit, but now with this shorter height and much larger hinge on the bottom, connecting the display to the body, the laptop's display is much more rigid than it used to be. So if you are an avid user of the touchscreen despite it not being a convertible, this is good news. The model I have has a beautiful 1080p display that is very bright, and while HP claim it's around 1000 nits, I don't necessarily believe it reaches that claim, and I can't test that, so I'm a bit skeptical of it myself. But compared to other laptop displays that I've seen, it definitely gets brighter than what I've seen in the past, on average at least. However, there is a caveat. While the display is stunning when you look at it face on, when you're not looking at it within about 45 degrees of the normal, the display just drops off in quality quite drastically. When you're outside of that kind of 90 degree cone face on off the laptop, the brightness and colour accuracy fall off dramatically, and even within that range it's noticeably better when facing front on than facing at a slight angle. So do keep that in mind, and that is a side effect of HP's newer generation privacy filters, which now use a passive filter instead of an active filter, which affects the laptop display quality even when the filter is turned off, which I do find to be very frustrating because the display is stunning, and yet it's got this one caveat which I feel like if you're watching a movie with someone, you have to be sitting right next to them to be able to properly enjoy it. Otherwise, you're going to see slightly just off colours and off brightness, and it's not going to feel as premium as you'd hope for a laptop that is presenting itself as a premium laptop. But personally, I don't do that too often, and I do use my laptop for creative elements like video editing and photo editing, and I find when using it front on, everything is perfect, and the colour accuracy is astounding, and so is the contrast. The main downside is looking at it from a different perspective, so keep that in mind. This is even more noticeable when you tilt the screen the wrong way. If it's tilted too far up or down, you can notice that the display quality just changes in this sort of gradient from where you're looking at it, and it's frustrating, but hopefully in future models HP will refine this more and not use a passive filter again, because this isn't a good look. Ideally, I'd prefer to either just not have the privacy filter myself. If it was going to include a privacy filter, I'd rather it be an active one that cost another £50 to £100 on top of this laptop price than it be the passive one that has affected the display this much. But that's just my opinion. You may not care that much yourself, it might not be an issue, but just keep that in mind. Now, one of the reasons I believe HP has included this privacy screen into the MV line is I very much believe they're trying to push their products as very privacy focused in their advertising. So if you look at the laptop, you can see it's got a dedicated camera kill switch, which both disconnects the camera physically and covers it so you can see when it is on or off. And it's also got a microphone kill switch, which doesn't physically disconnect the microphone, but does mute every microphone that is connected to the laptop. So whether it's the inbuilt microphone or an external one like the one I'm using to record this, it will mute it. Now I believe that's something in the BIOS, which means it would be much harder for someone to try and counteract that, but it doesn't mean it's impossible compared to the camera kill switch where it is physically disconnecting it. So do keep that in mind, but I think because of the nature of the microphone mute switch, I think it's a pass, but it's something you have to keep in mind. But yeah, with the camera kill switch, the microphone mute switch, and the privacy screen, they're definitely trying to market this as very privacy focused, as well as with the fingerprint scanner as well. There's a lot of privacy features which a lot of people will appreciate very much with this laptop. So yeah, I wouldn't say any of those necessarily negatives. I'd say just be aware that the privacy screen does affect the display quality even when off, and the microphone mute switch doesn't physically disconnect the microphone, but it does have the functionality for every microphone connected to your laptop, which is a nice addition, which I didn't realise until I started this recording. Now the rest of this body is very similar to previous models, where it's got the same anodized aluminium body, same silver finish, same full-size keyboard, and it's got a slightly taller trackpad. It's gone from what I believe was a 18:9 or 1:2 aspect ratio to a 16:9 aspect ratio, which it means it is the exact same size as the display, which is at least a benefit, because I do believe the trackpad was too thin before. And I do find when using it that it doesn't feel as claustrophobic as the other trackpad used to feel, so I do think that this is an improvement. Although, unfortunately, the trackpad is not coated in glass, which is a hope of mine I was having for this laptop. Unfortunately, they still haven't got it on the MV line, but it does still have Windows Precision drivers, which is much better than the Synaptics drivers they used to have. Although the left and right click only work on the bottom of the trackpad, and I've noticed that when scrolling slowly with 2 fingers, the laptop will sometimes take a moment to respond, although I'm not sure if this is just an issue with Windows Precision drivers or the fact it's a plastic trackpad. I don't know. I'm not sure whether that's something that can be fixed with a driver update or not, but just keep that in mind. Now, one of the more notable design changes of the laptop, other than the bezels and the speakers, is the fingerprint scanner has now been moved from the palm rest to into the keyboard, which personally I think aesthetically looks nice, but in terms of practicality I do find it frustrating, because I personally am a big fan of using keyboard shortcuts, and there's still times now where I try to do a keyboard shortcut and use the right control key, but it doesn't exist. There is no control key, it's just been replaced with the fingerprint scanner, and I always find myself just doing it out of habit because I've been so used to it for so long, and it's not there. And it does confuse me as to why HP couldn't have integrated the fingerprint scanner into the power button and kept the control key, because there's plenty of other laptops that do that exact thing, and there's some like the MateBook from Huawei which I believe cache your fingerprint when you even press the power button. So as soon as you press the power button, as soon as it gets to the login screen, it logs you in right away, so you don't even need to press it again, which I think is something that HP could definitely include as just a convenience thing. It's not a huge deal, but it is something that I personally have experienced as a negative, but it's something that I am definitely getting used to, but it's a little bit annoying for people who do use the control key on the right side of the keyboard. But other than that, I think aesthetically it is an improvement from where it was before. Now, on the right side of the laptop, you'll find that there's a USB 3.1 Gen 1 Type A port with a drop jaw mechanism, which helps the laptop have the thin design, and a USB-A port. And as well as this, you'll find a barrel charging port and the microSD slot, which is frustrating to see that so many Ultrabooks are just going for microSD and not full-size SD, when there's literally no reason for it. You can just fit a full-size SD card in an Ultrabook. If you can fit a full-size USB port, you can definitely fit a full-size SD card slot, and it's just a small annoyance I have with Ultrabooks more recently, but that's not something that's out of the blue. It's like the headphone jack being removed from most smartphones nowadays. It's something that a lot of people have learned to live with, but it is a frustration nonetheless. Anyway, on the left side you'll find the same USB 3.1 Gen 1 Type A port with the same drop jaw mechanism, and as well as that, you'll also find a 3.5mm headphone jack and a USB 3.1 Gen 2 Type C port, although if you have the lower end models without the MX350, you will also have Thunderbolt 3 support, although I believe that it may be different in America, because in America there are some hardware changes, like here in the UK, there's never been a 4K NV13, but I know in America there have always been 4K NV13s, I believe. So there's some hardware differences in America, so that might not necessarily be true, but at least here in the UK, there is no Thunderbolt 3 support on the top end model, which I do find strange, but at the very least, you can kind of justify it with the better graphics card and the faster USB-C port, at least compared to the USB-A ports. And this laptop, I believe, does support charging through the USB-C port, by the way, for anyone who's interested. I haven't got a charger to properly verify this, but I did plug in my Nintendo Switch charger just to check if it had any reaction to it. And it says something along the lines of, you need a more powerful power brick to be able to charge this laptop, so I'm going to assume it probably needs something like a 60-watt power brick, which I believe is the standard, but I can't verify that myself beyond what seems to be the case. Onto the keyboard, and I can safely say that this is, on a whole, a pleasure to use. The keys are full-size and very slightly shifted to the left due to the addition of the home, page up, page down and end keys, but personally coming from a 15-inch laptop where I've had a number pad and I've been very shifted to the left already, I can deal with this very much so, and I feel like this is something that will take very little time to adjust to, so I'm sure anyone who gets this laptop, you should be able to deal with it. The keyboard has almost no flex, which is great to see, and it also features a 2-stage backlight as well. The microphone and camera kill switches are both integrated into the function keys, and feature a small orange indicator light to show if they're on or off, which is a nice touch to see, whereas the privacy screen is also integrated into the function keys, but it doesn't have an indicator light. That's just because the privacy screen is so clearly on or off when you're using it, so you don't need an indicator for it. The main negatives I have with the keyboard are there are some compromises when it comes to typing due to some of the choices HP have made. For instance, as I mentioned earlier, the integrated fingerprint scanner is replacing the control key, which is very frustrating for me, and that could just be a personal issue, to be honest, so I won't go on about that again. But as well as this, the addition of the home, page up, page down, and end keys means that if you want to type a backslash, as a programmer for instance, you have to do an awkward, I believe it's Control-Shift-L, because the L key has both the pipe symbol and the backslash. So if you're typing either the pipe or the backslash, you have to do Function L or Function Shift L, which just feel awkward, and it's something that I think with time, again, you can get used to, but I haven't used them a huge amount yet, so I still haven't got it in my muscle memory, but it's one of those things that it just feels like an awkward button combination, and honestly, I think I probably still would have rathered just have a shorter shift key on the left, and have a dedicated pipe and backslash key. But again, I do think a lot of these are minor issues that most people, if they are issues to them, they can resolve them just by getting used to it by muscle memory. But I think a lot of these negatives that I've pointed out, you're going to see on plenty of other Ultrabooks anyway, so it's not like this is a HP only issue. Now let's talk performance. So the model I have, like I said, is the top end model. It's the BA0010NA, which has a quad-core Comet Lake i7, 10510U, as well as Nvidia's latest and greatest low-power mobile GPU, being the MX350, which has 2GB of GDDR5 RAM. It also supports 16GB of dual-channel DDR4 RAM, clocked at 2667 MHz, as well as the Intel AX201 Wi-Fi card, which supports both Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.1, so you should see some fast wireless speeds. For storage, this model has a 1TB Intel NVMe SSD, which gives some pretty good scores on Crystal Disk Mark. If you're a light user, then getting this model off the laptop is probably a bit overkill, unless you're someone who enjoys having plenty of tabs open without any noticeable drops in performance. But even then, I'm sure you'd be fine on the lower end models with the Ice Lake CPUs. With the MV13, you can easily work with 1080p 30fps video, and 1080p 60fps video is also generally fine in both Vegas Pro 15 and HitFilm Pro 14. And you can probably also manage 4K 30 fine as well, but playing it back in the timeline is likely to lag even with very few effects and animated elements present. 4K 60 may be a bit of a struggle, but I'm sure you can manage as long as you keep your project simple and are regularly saving in the off chance it does crash. Photo editing and vector work are a breeze on the MV, and I imagine only the most intensive projects and several background tasks could slow it down, as I personally had a great experience with both. Now, I'm not too good at 3D modelling, but I did download this royalty-free animated rig of Shrek online and found the playback to be smooth. I also found a more complex model of Hogwarts, both of these are royalty-free by the way, and I could easily change the perspective without any hiccups. Obviously, these are far from professional grade, but if you are going to be going for professional 3D modelling, you're likely to be looking at a dedicated PC anyway, so this laptop should be fine for some general 3D modelling as long as it's not too intensive. Now moving on to gaming, I only tested a couple of games that are known to be intensive, as I don't have too many intensive games to test as a frame of reference. The games I tested were GTA 5 and Metal Gear Solid 5, and both performed very well. They both played at 1080p, although GTA 5 was set to medium settings and Metal Gear Solid 5 was at high settings. As you can see, GTA 5 maintained a good frame rate in the high 30s to 40s in less crowded areas, but in more busy environments suffered a drop to the mid-20s to 30s. Obviously a drop is expected, but the drop here is quite significant, so it may be worth further reducing the settings, although this could just be fixed with a future driver update, as the MX350 is a relatively new GPU, so do keep that in mind. In Metal Gear Solid 5, however, the MX350 performs much better. Even at high settings, I managed to get a fairly consistent average frame rate of around 42.5 frames per second, with a frame rate peaking at around 60 frames per second and 1% low of about 25 frames per second. So the game itself felt very smooth and enjoyable, and only in more busy scenes does a frame rate drop, although it's still a very playable frame rate if you ask me. Finally, let's talk about battery life. In my personal experience, I'm quite a heavy user as I often tend to jump between having a million tabs open at once in Firefox and trying to do other tasks here or there as well, be it some light video editing or just watching a film, but generally in my experience the battery life tends to last upwards of around 7 hours on a recommended profile, and sometimes higher if all I'm doing is browsing, typing up documents and watching films and YouTube. I'd definitely say this laptop is capable of lasting a whole working day, although in lockdown if you're spending all day on this laptop and nothing else, you'll likely find that you need to charge it up, although the laptop only takes around an hour to an hour and a half to fully charge and even boasts quick charging, to ensure you can get some good usage out of it in a pinch if you can't bring the charging brick. Although the charging brick itself is very small and lightweight, so I'm sure if you needed to bring it, you wouldn't find it to be a heavy burden. So here's a quick camera test for the laptop and a microphone test. As you can see, the camera is actually pretty decent for a laptop camera. Not anything special like the MacBooks, which are actually pretty good, but I'd say this is definitely better than what I've seen on a lot of laptops, so that's a good plus. And you can see for yourself what the audio is like. Maybe a little bit muffled because I currently have this just on my lap instead of on a table. On a table, I found it has some good results, but let me know what you think down below. Now, do I recommend the MV13? Yeah, without a doubt. Starting at £850 is a great price for a premium, lightweight and capable laptop with a small footprint, perfect for students or anyone heading into a boardroom. The privacy features are great to see, even if the privacy screen does affect the screen quality, and each model features a fast SSD with a high capacity, starting at half a terabyte for the lower model, which is great to see. As well as this, every model features Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.1, which is great for connectivity. The keyboard is great and the display is stunning, and a main gripe I have with the display is the passive filter they chose to use for the integrated privacy filter, as it does dramatically affect it compared to other high quality IPS displays, but that again is a specific issue for someone looking at the display from side on. Looking at it front on, you should have no issues. I find that the performance of the high-end model is more than capable for most people, and will allow people with a passion for creative work that are looking for a good mix of practicality, affordability and performance find exactly what they're looking for, and I do not regret this purchase one bit. Now I do hope you found my review to be helpful, and this is my first review, and I do intend to try making out more videos like this in the future here or there, although that's not all I plan for the future of this channel, so if you're new to this channel, be sure to keep that in mind, and I hope you do stick around to see what that includes. I am planning to upload some more videos soon, so do keep an eye out for that. Anyway, that's it for today guys, and goodbye.